Good afternoon. You really are the Shah Rukh Khan of JLF.
Oh,
Huh?
come on.
Look at that crowd. Look at that response.
Wonderful to be here and to see you all. Thank you.
This is what your
I keep
third.
complaining about JLF clashing with the budget session of Parliament. So I actually had to be not only at the budget yesterday while Mrs. Sitaraman was offering her goodies to the nation, and then I had to comment on it on television, and I had to rush here, and I'm leaving immediately after the session, so if any of you wanted books signed, forgive me, we'll have to wait till some other festival. But having said that, it's wonderful that you're all here. Thank you.
And this is what your third session today.
Third session today, and that's it.
You've just gone from one session to
I'm
another.
afraid so, yeah, more or less. There was a long signing after the first one, which I must say I'm very grateful for. Nothing more gratifying than, some kid who wasn't born when the great Indian novel first came out, coming and clutching a copy and seeing how much it means to her. And that's really thrilling.
That's
So
what makes it worthwhile.
I do enjoy these signings, but one was all I could fit in today.
Did the other sessions get this kind of crowd?
In the space available, yes, we've had
Yeah.
people standing around. That's the thing about JLF, my gosh. People really do come and they listen and they care. And apparently they also seem to buy a lot of books, so it's turning out to be good for the industry. Actually, in a culture where there's so much worry about our kids reading enough, I'm delighted that JLF has glamorized books and reading so much.
Absolutely. I've been doing JLF for like 6 years, and the biggest sessions, the biggest audiences I have ever seen are the sessions I do with you.
Thank you, Veer. I'm glad to have done whatever little bit I can in the process.
Okay, Shashi, I thought because people ask you to talk about esoteric subjects or to push your books, I'm going to do none of that. I'm going to talk about a subject that I think has drawn everyone here, and that subject is Shashi Tharoor.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to bore the audience with the précis of his career, but I think it's fair to say that he was an extremely well-known writer, very nearly became Secretary General of the United Nations, was offered many lucrative jobs in the private sector, which he flirted with, but ultimately came back to India to join politics. And unlike most people in his position, with his kind of background, who would be welcomed into the Rajya Sabha and garlanded, he was told to go and fight an election in Kerala. So far correct?
So far correct.
So tell us what that was like.
It was the toughest thing I'd ever done, and I've walked through minefields in Bosnia. So I can tell you it was just amazing. First of all, I was foolish enough to say yes, because the truth is that I left India for graduate studies in the US when I was 19, and the voting age in India was 21 at the time. And therefore, I'd never even voted in an election, let alone seen one up close. So I had no idea what I was getting in for. They said, would you contest? I said, sure, I'll contest. And it was amazingly, amazingly hard, not to mention that I think there were a lot of people, even in my own party, in my own team, in my constituency, who weren't particularly happy that I'd been given the ticket.
Right.
And so they sent me on some incredible wild goose chases. There were several days, in fact, there wasn't a single day in the 3-week campaign which didn't involve at least 20 hours of campaigning. But there was one day which involved 23. I mean, I literally...
23 hours.
23 hours. I got back to bed at 4 a.m. and I had to be up and out at 5 a.m. for the resumption of the next day. It was as if they were trying to kill me, and maybe they were. but it worked, and I'm proud to say that it was a crash course in the realities of electoral politics. I was facing quite a few challenges in the sense that I had never lived in Kerala. I was... of Kerala descent. Both my parents were born in Kerala, but I'm different part of Kerala. But I was born in London myself, went to school in Bombay, high school in Calcutta, college in Delhi, and as this kind of pan-Indian figure went off to the States, did my graduate studies, my PhD, joined the UN, worked for the UN around the world. I had spent much more than half my life abroad before coming back to India, other than holidays every year to see my parents. And here I was suddenly plunged into the fray of a Lok Sabha election campaign. So you can imagine to begin with that I was having to have a very steep learning curve. On top of that, my opponents decided that the easy way to bring me down was to say to the voter, look at this guy. I mean, how can he presume to represent us? He doesn't even speak Malayalam properly, which is true, I didn't. And he is used to spending his life in three-piece suits and air-conditioned offices. How can he know what it's like to actually represent the people of this constituency? Don't vote for him. And in a sense, it was a logical line of attack.
Yeah.
But what I did was I dressed in the local attire, because that was something I'd worn on holidays in Kerala. Because like most Malayali diaspora, my parents took us back to their home villages every year when my sisters and I were growing up. So I knew what it was like. I went back. I campaigned in the hottest month of the year. It was March, April, end of March, early April, right before any of the rain. So it was building up to the hottest times. I did the 18-20 hours. And what I said in my not very fluent Malayalam was I would talk to people for a few minutes and say, look, you can see that I have enough Malayalam to understand your problems and your aspirations. And what is far more important, I have the English and the Hindi to express them in Delhi to my opponents. And that argument was the clincher, I think.
It's a good argument, right?
It worked. It worked. I won with a record majority, and I haven't looked back, thank God.
The story when you came back was that Sonia Gandhi was very keen that you went to Parliament, that you became a minister, which is fine, and she probably was. But why didn't she just put you in the Rajya Sabha? Why go and fight an election and learn Malayalam and get involved in the sort of dirty nitty-gritty of politics?
Well, first of all, because we didn't have too many options in the Rajya Sabha. There literally wasn't a vacancy the Congress could have offered me. One briefly opened up when the Gandhian Nirmala Deshpande died. She was sitting in a nominated seat. But at that point, Dr. Manmohan Singh needed an economist for good, sensible reason. Mr. Rangarajan got that seat. So there literally wasn't one. So either it was waited out when things might even be worse, who knows what the next elections would bring, or enter the fray. And I thought, naively again, just as I was naive to accept the thing, I said, look, it'll be fascinating to actually earn the right to represent the people. And how do you earn the right to go out and get their votes? So, and especially having lived abroad as long as I had, I felt I really had to come back and get into the fray, and that's why I did it.
And what were your learnings? Because you won against, I think, some expectations, including those of members of your own party.
Oh, yeah.
So what was your learning?
First of all, it was a seat we hadn't won in the two previous elections. It was a communist-held seat. And I went into it because it was the capital of Kerala. I knew that though I was writing in English, all my books were available in translation. My publisher, Ravi DC, is somewhere around. The books were available. I thought at least in a city like Thiruvananthapuram, there would be enough of a literate constituency that would know what I stood for, what I believed in, would be attracted enough by that. Now, boy, that didn't remain true for very long. But in that election, we had the peculiar circumstance of the election falling in such a way that there was a national holiday, two Kerala religious holidays all happening in the same week as the voting. And any sensible, urban, educated professional, by taking 1 day's leave, would have got a week and 2 weekends off.
Yeah.
And so everyone did precisely that. So all the sort of natural city voters I was counting on the votes of, they disappeared and didn't stay to vote. And I actually had to go out and get the votes of ordinary folk in villages, tribal belt, fishermen's colonies. And that was a fabulous learning, because you really got to talk to people whose problems were real, whose problems were fairly vital, and whose problems required political intervention to give them support.